You're listening to a Nite Muse Media production. Tonight we return to the lost art of radio storytelling. Close your eyes if you like, and let the theater of the mind begin. Your host, John Robinson.
It was the Beatles' most controversial moment. This is John Robinson with Nite Muse Media, bringing you an oddity story in entertainment history. Back in 1966, during the height of Beatlemania, the Beatles posed for a photo that would never quite fit the image that people had of them. It would come to be known as the Butcher cover. At first glance, it doesn't look like a publicity shot at all. All four Beatles, John, Paul, George, and Ringo, are dressed in white coats. And they really weren't butcher smocks like legend says. The photographer, Robert Whittaker, dressed them in medical smocks, laboratory attire. And in their laps, and draped over their shoulders, are raw pieces of meat and dismembered baby dolls. Robert Whittaker was an avant-garde photographer who'd been working with the Beatles during a time when they were just beginning to change. Not musically, but psychologically. They were tired of expectations. They were tired of being seen as something polished and predictable. Whittaker called his concept a somnambulant adventure, a kind of a waking dream. Now, some interpretations of the Beatles' Butcher album suggest the cover was a protest against the way the music was being butchered by record companies. Whereas one album would be released in England with 14 songs on it, the American company would cut out songs and only have 11, thus the butchering of the music. By 1966, the Beatles weren't just musicians anymore. They were being packaged and distributed, taken advantage of, consumed, and now here they were, posing with raw meat, raw slabs of bloody pork that Whittaker got at the local butcher, dismembered baby dolls that he went and picked up at a doll factory, took the heads off of them, gave them all cigarette burns, then got some false teeth and eyeballs that he got from an eye factory. Even though he got quite a few of these eyeballs, on the cover you can only see one. If you could really look hard, you might find it. When this bizarre image was selected for the cover of the album Yesterday and Today, it wasn't seen as art. It was kind of a shock. People started complaining about it, so Capitol Records sent out letters to radio stations and record stores and said, you gotta send this back. You gotta send these albums back because we're gonna change the cover. A guy I know that worked in radio back then remembers getting that album in the mail when it came out. He took one look at the cover and said, oh, it's a new Beatle album, and proceeded to play it on the air. Didn't even think anything about that weird cover. But once Capitol Records received all those returned album covers, they didn't destroy them. What they did was paste a whole new picture over it. One of the most boring covers the Beatles ever had for an album. Paul sitting in a trunk and the other guys standing around him. And then they sent the albums back out to the public again. And after a while, people started realizing, hey, there's another picture under here. And then they started peeling it, but you had to peel it real slow, otherwise you would ruin that cover that was underneath it. And then the Butcher cover was finally discovered. And if you had bought that album the first day it came out in its original state and kept it sealed, you'd be sitting on a gold mine. The highest price that was ever paid for one of those first edition Butcher albums was $75,000. If you can find one that has the paste over, but don't peel it, that's worth a few $1,000s too. If you find one that's been peeled, well, it depends on how good the peel is. If it's a crummy peel, you can still get a good amount of money for it, but a really good peel will bring you a few $1,000s. Not long after that, the Beatles stopped touring. The Butcher cover version of Yesterday and Today might not have lasted on the shelves, but it really didn't disappear either. It was just covered up. And then it was rediscovered, and maybe that's what makes it endure to this day. This is John Robinson for Nite Muse Media.